Hello and welcome to this special live stream book launch event for Kimberly Akimbo. We're very excited that you're here to join us today. My name is Andy Boyd and I'm the marketing coordinator for TCG Books. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a white man with dark brown hair wearing a blue shirt. We're so excited to introduce you to this event featuring Jeanine Tesori and David Lindsay-Abaire in conversation with John Hodgman. They will be discussing their smash hit musical, Kimberly Akimbo, which recently won an incredible 5 Tony Awards, including Best New Musical, Best Book, and Best Score. It was also recently published by TCG Books. We'll now take a moment to offer our respects to the many lands on which we gather and to honor the traditional stewards of these lands. If you have a land acknowledgement as part of your personal or organizational practice, we invite you to share them in the comments now. While you do, I'll read the land acknowledgement posted in TCG's office. Theater Communications Group's offices are located on the Lenape Island of Mannahatta in Lenape-Hoking, the Lenape homeland. We honor the generations of stewardship the Lenape peoples have given to the water, air, and land. As guests, we pay respect to the Lenape peoples, past, present, and future, here in their homeland and throughout the Lenape diaspora. While acknowledgement is important, it is not enough. That's why TCG has put together a webpage with multiple ways you can support Native-led movements for justice, and we'll share a link to that page in the chat now. Now, before we get started, I want to thank the partners and supporters who have made this event possible. TCG Books Presents is supported in part by the New York State Council on the Arts with support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature, along with public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council and generous individual donors like you. We are also supported by a generous grant from the Mellon Foundation and by the National Endowment for the Arts. If you'd like to support events like this and all of TCG's programs, from our federal arts advocacy to our ED&I initiatives, please visit tcg.org/donate or click the link that we're sharing now. And now I'd like to introduce our panelists. Jeanine Tesori is an acclaimed composer working in the fields of musical theater and opera. She has written the scores for shows including Violet, Thoroughly Modern Millie, Caroline or Change, Fun Home, Soft Power, Blue, and now Kimberly Akimbo. She has been nominated for the Tony Award for Best Original Score 6 times, winning twice for Fun Home and Kimberly Akimbo. She has also won 2 Drama Desk Awards and been nominated twice for the Pulitzer Prize. Her new opera Grounded, with libretto by George Brandt, will premiere at the Kennedy Center this fall. Her musical Caroline or Change, book and lyrics by Tony Kushner, is published by TCG Books. David Lindsay-Abaire is a playwright, lyricist, and librettist. His many plays include Fuddy Mears, Good People, and Rabbit Hole, for which he won the Pulitzer Prize. He has worked as a book writer and or lyricist on High Fidelity, Shrek the Musical, and of course, Kimberly Akimbo, for which he won the Tony for Best Book of a Musical. His plays Ripcord, Good People, and Rabbit Hole are published by TCG Books. John Hodgman is a writer, comedian, and actor. His books include a trilogy of books of fake facts, as well as the memoirs Vacationland, True Stories from Painful Beaches, and Medallion Status, True Stories from Secret Rooms. He has appeared on TV shows including The Daily Show, The Venture Brothers, The Tick, and Dicktown, which he also co-wrote and co-created with David Rees. He also hosts the podcast Judge John Hodgman, where he settles serious disputes between real people, such as, is a hot dog a sandwich, and should we tell our children the truth about Santa Claus? And now I'll turn it over to Jeanine, David, and John.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Jeanine. Hi, David. And hi,
John.
hi, everyone in the world who is watching. My name is John Hodgman. I am he, him. I am a very handsome man wearing a blue shirt with a beard that justifies itself. No one needs to question it. And I'm very, very thrilled to be joining the incredible co-creators of the new musical, Kimberly Akimbo, David Lindsay-Abaire, and Jeanine Tesori. You heard all of their qualifications. They're the real deal. They're the real deal. And I just wanted to say that I met David Lindsay-Abaire almost 20 years ago, back when I was a magazine writer, and I was asked to profile him. And I tried very hard to get out of it, but they forced me to do it. And then No, I said, of course. And David and I became, I dare say, friends at that time. And I had very little understanding. I actually did try to get out of it because it's like, I don't know anything about musical theater, even though I'd lived
Same.
in New York. Yeah, right. For, more than a decade at that point. And David said, well, I'll show you around. And we went and saw some shows. And we saw some of the big hits of the day. Some of the big, touristy shows. And he said, let me show you what's the best thing on Broadway right now. And he took me to see Caroline or Change, which was your musical,
True.
Jeanine. And
Oh, right. Oh, gosh. Yeah.
I was blown away. And David, you mentioned you might not have even really known Jeanine at that
I don't think if I knew Jeanine, we had only maybe just met, but it was at the very beginning, but it might've been right before. Yeah, I did. I genuinely just loved that show. And I felt like, oh, musical theater can do this? Then sign me up, because I was probably as unfamiliar with musical theater as you were, John, at that point. So,
well, you seem to know a lot more about what was going on. And I was also blown away. And fast forward about a decade or so, probably more than that, actually. And Caroline or Change was being mounted again, I think in 2021, early 2021, right after Broadway was supposedly coming back the first time. And I texted you, David. We hadn't been in touch for a long time. And I said, hey, we should go see this show again. And you said, it's funny, I'm sitting with Jeanine right now. And I've never felt more connected to the inner workings of the New York theater world than at that moment. And so it's a real treat to be here. David, one of the things you introduced me to at that time, which as a writer, I felt really stupid that I didn't know, was the idea of the big want that a character has, particularly in musicals. And I've thought about that. I've learned a lot about structuring my own work around the big want. And so when TCG asked me, did I want to do this? I said, yeah, that's my big want. I want to talk to these people.
well, you should sing about it now. I want to hear that one song, John.
Yeah. No, I am inside. Inside I am.
That's how.
Yeah. Maybe when you get around to writing the musical of this Zoom conference call, which, by the way, could be a great next project.
But let's see.
You'll write a song of my big want.
Dynamite.
But so I know
David
pretty well, and Jeanine, I'm just getting to know you, and you're so wonderful. When I texted you, you were working on Kimberly Akimbo, I can only presume. And I know that you've been over it and over it again, but for those who perhaps don't know, I'm not going to ask, how this collaboration started on Kimberly Akimbo specifically, but why this play? Why did you come together to try to adapt this play into a musical?
Okay, I'll start, and then Jeanine can do the why of the play. Jeanine and I were working on Shrek the Musical together.
Right.
And there were a lot of people involved. It was a big, giant movie, obviously, that we were adapting. And so it was difficult. It was wonderful for lots of reasons, but also difficult for lots of reasons. And in the midst of it, I said to Jeanine, gosh, it's so much easier when I write a play. It's just me by myself. And it can be bad for as long as it needs to be bad, and often is, until I figure it out. And people aren't giving me notes, while I'm in the middle of it. I wish we could write a musical like that. And Jeanine said, yeah, let's do that, where it's just you and me. And how about adapting one of your plays, maybe? So Jeanine, you can say why Kimberly you thought was a good idea.
Well, we should, before we go any further, we'll describe ourselves. I'm wearing a brown shirt. My hair is tied back, very, very Sicilian nun style. I have thick black glasses on, and I go by she, her. David, you want to?
Yes, thank you. He, him. Like John, I'm wearing a blue shirt and not quite as handsome, and I have no beard, but I have sandy brown hair. Thank you.
Yes. The David and I work where he's you pictured in front of his many awards and volumes of books. And I love David's house. I love his family. We work there almost all the time now. And in his office, which is we call the turret. So when we work, we call it turret time, which was I think modeled after Ramona's turtle time. And well, that is for me.
What is that? Is that a Real Housewives?
Yes, turtle time. Oh, David, so much to learn.
Go.
And there are all of these bookshelves and bookshelves of plays, and he has some of his, and I think I pulled that out, and I've always loved that that play, and particularly because it's a young work. I think that there were David's ambition and his skill set, as happens with young writers, they weren't quite matched. And so there was room for music. There was a reason to go back to it. Sometimes things are so complete. It's not that it won't sell as a musical, but that doesn't mean that it needs to be one. So I think that's how we started, right, Hila?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helped the characters had, complicated internal lives, and there was elbow room. There wasn't a lot of plot. And so in a musical, you need some elbow room to where songs should be. And that play lent itself to that.
And how do you respond to Jeanine's contention that the play wasn't very good, so that it gave her room to
right? It was very young, and we can make it better. That's what I heard.
Yeah, it was a solid B plus. Time to get into A+ territory.
Okay, all right. We're getting into it. What happened on opening night at the Atlantic, David Lindsay-Abaire?
So many things, but Jeanine.
Okay, but the one
we got word that our reviews were quite good, and one in particular, and Jeanine, collapsed in tears, which I have never seen before.
Yeah.
But good Lord, you've gotten so many great reviews. And what she said was, it's not about the reviews. I was just terrified that I was going to break your play.
Oh, so, well, I mean, collaboration. Jeanine, please forgive me for having some fun with what you said just there. But I really admired the fact that you were very open about what, that you saw room for yourself in this play, something that you could bring to it. And collaboration is really hard, and it requires a lot of honesty and bluntness and difficulty, having done it myself at times. And it's funny, I was reviewing some of the Kimberly Akimbo YouTube channel, which is terrific. If you're on YouTube, maybe you should go subscribe to that next. And they were doing a little trailer, or sort of an introduction to the musical, and there was this image, a short video of you, Jeanine, at the piano, and David, you just kind of sitting there staring at her while playing, which I presume is how it's done, right? You just sit there and have quiet thoughts to yourself while
not staged. Yeah. No, that's exactly how we work.
Exactly. He just gets stoic, stymied, and quiet.
Yeah.
So presuming that I reached you in the turret when I texted you that day, like what was the collaborative process like, and what were some of the hurdles that you had to get over?
There weren't a lot of hurdles, actually, because Jeanine and I are, in fact, totally not precious with each other. We're very honest with each other. We're not hurtful, but I think the collaboration works because we're very honest, but also very open, and we never shut each other down. So even if we throw an idea at each other that doesn't quite land, we always say, what, Jeanine?
Maybe. Maybe.
Because then we go down that road, even if we feel like, I don't think this is the right road. But then we go down and we're like, yeah, we hit a bad idea. So we go to the next bad idea. And it's the fourth or fifth bad idea that gets us to the right idea. And that's incredibly important, because it's easy to close it off, say, no, that's not it, and then move on to the next thing, which is common in collaborations. And so the fact that we are both so open and available to each other gets us to where we want to go.
Yeah, I think people, David and I have worked with a lot of people because theater is a collaborative art form, musicals in particular. And we both work with people who use their expertise as a shield to sort of shut people down. I know better. And that's such crap, because you don't. This team has never written this show at this time. So in a way, you're all beginners. And yes, we've done a ton of work because we're old. I'm old. But the beginning mind, it's why I think when you shake the Yahtzee cubes, when you're putting a team together, having people who haven't worked on musicals or just beginning, their questions are going to be different. And that really is very helpful in a collaboration.
You speak about this play in this time. Obviously, the Kimberly Akimbo, the musical, premiered in 2021 originally, got those great reviews, and now hit Broadway in 2022, right? Late 2022. This is a time when people are just coming back to the theater for a lot, and there's a lot been going on. There's a message in this play, in this musical, about making the most of the time that you have. How's that resonating with audiences who are coming back to the theater now? And how conscious were you of how that resonates with this time of turmoil that we've been through the past few years.
We were aware of it to an extent that we were like, oh, we hope this is why the play will resonate with people. But I don't think we were actually prepared for the response, which was much deeper and more visceral than I think we were ready for. I think it was just, it was literally one of the very first shows back. And so just putting the show aside, if you can do that, people were just so excited and terrified and renewed to be in a theater with each other, watching something. The fact that it was hopefully a life-affirming show about seizing the moment and making the most with the time that you have left, I think got in there even deeper in a way that was, about the show, but also just about life and what people walked into that room with.
Yeah, I agree. I think also the thing that we all know from David's work is the razor's edge of where comedy and tragedy are. And so often in particularly in musicals, you get one or the other. It's a musical comedy or it's a musical drama. And this is a comedy drama. And I say comedy first because I think that you go through the portal of laughter to release in order for your heart to be open. And I think we're in a time too where people were all seeking escape in a sense. But the thing that this show does that I really love is it allows people to have big belly laughs, and then they're so entertained and delighted by the comedy that they're available for the heartbreak of it.
So obviously the message of, seize the moment that you have, time is short, is timeless itself. Why maintain the setting of 1999? I mean, it's one of the first things you see when you go into the theaters. Like, people didn't have cell phones at this time.
Right.
It was so crucial.
Yeah.
It's so crucial. It's like even thinking about it now, both of us are laughing. We have kids, you have teenage kids, and I've a grown daughter. And my daughter came of age before the onslaught of social media and before the ability to constantly be in communication. And that meant that you had to wonder a lot. And there were a lot of, I wonder what that person is thinking. And I feel like now I know what everybody's thinking, what they're eating, where they're going. I'm not on any of that stuff because who cares what I'm doing? Nobody. But that idea that you're flooded with it was part of the deal. And I think as part of the drama is you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the show is so much about characters seeking connection and feeling disconnected.
Right.
And that's a completely different thing in 1999 than it is right now. I mean, in addition to everything that Jeanine said, just a lot of the plot wouldn't even work. One of the first scenes is Kim waiting at the rink for her dad, who doesn't show up for 2.5 hours because he's late. Now just be like, where are you? Text him saying, I'm here waiting, or let me call an Uber. Like, we're disconnected in completely different ways. But in terms of the story that we were telling, just 1999 made more sense, and the show kind of fell apart if we tried to put it in the present.
Yeah, there's different kinds of identity theft now than stealing checks out of a mailbox.
And yet,
yes,
every day someone sends me a new article about that very scam, and I'm not saying that it's.
Are they asking you to give them money? Too?
But David, we have to tell people about gel pens. Use a gel pen on your checks and they won't get washed.
Yes.
There's a certain kind of gel pen. That's a public service.
Oh, I like that. I want to know.
Thank you.
Well,
okay.
Janine is an investor in gel pens as well.
Did you have to do some research into check washing when you were constructing the story originally? Or was this?
No, I read the story.
Is this how it's done?
This is how it's done.
Okay.
I mean, I had seen a story about it. And I thought, what a strange scam that people are putting these glue traps into mailboxes and picking up the checks and using common household chemicals to get the ink. I was just fascinated by the scam, and I'm going to put this into a show. So it was actually, the story came before the play.
And when it comes to writing a song about check washing, Jeanine, what was the first song that you thought of that started to click for you in your imagination when you thought about adapting this? Of the songs that are in the show, maybe the first that sort of came to mind or made you feel like attracted to, the idea.
Oh, well, when we were putting that that number, to open a second act is a very different, because I think theater in a lot of ways is setting the table for an audience, is much like you'd have dinner, and it's just like, oh, here's ossobuco and some veal and some pasta and a little bit of veal scallopini. It's just too much. You have to vary it, because it is a menu for your ears and eyes. And so when you open act 2, people are coming back and they're settling, so you have to acknowledge that. And usually act 2s open up with something that has rhythm to it. And the first song that I wrote to David's really great sculpted lyrics was BAD. It was Papa, and it was not fun. And then I thought, we both thought, this is like Julie Andrews on crack, a do re mi, a teaching song of a bad kind. We had to really, like, why would the teen say yes to this? And then we when we did a page 1 relook after the Atlantic, we really looked at what peer pressure looked like and why teenagers, us included, do dumb things, not just because your brain isn't formed, but because you want to be accepted. You don't want to be othered. You'll do anything. You'll be impulsive in that way. And that's how a lot of tragedies happen when teenagers are impulsive. Yes, I'll get in that car. Yes, I'll join that theft ring. And so getting to know Bonnie, we completely changed it to, instead of Julie Andrews on crack, it was Peggy Lee on crack, which I so enjoyed.
Yeah. But to answer your initial question, John, one of the first song that we actually wrote, because you asked about, how we work in the turret.
It wasn't a very well phrased question, I have to.
The first song of overall, I thought it was act 2.
Yeah, no, I went from that into another thing, and it was just, I was tap dancing, and it was.
That's an example of my listening skills.
I appreciate that. Yes, of course.
Beating themselves up.
There you go.
Jeanine and I went through the script and said, where are the songs that pop the most clearly? And one of the moments in the play was what is now the anagram song, is where Kim sort of sees Seth for the first time and realizes, what a weirdo he is and how she identifies with him. And so anagram, I think, was the very first song. And it was interesting because my first approach was way too clever by half, where I thought, the song needs to be structured like an anagram itself. And so I was really obsessed with making it an anagram as a song. And Jeanine said, okay, wait, like maybe we can put the anagram in the background and we can, actually experience the song through Kim and hear her internal thoughts. And of course, just really a logical thing to think instead of obsessing about the anagrams. And then she said, and because you're obsessed with anagrams, why don't you let me record you as you figure out what the anagram would be. So I very reluctantly let Jeanine hit record on her tape recorder. And I just figured out the anagram. And so what you hear Seth say is essentially like what I was saying on that tape recorder, and then Jeanine just set it to music, and then
it's very clever
stuff. Anyway, there you go.
Well, no, it's I was obviously that song was featured on the Tony Awards, and I was rewatching it, and I was thinking about, like, how do you come up with someone figuring out a puzzle in that way and just record David Lindsay-Abaire doing it?
My great fun about doing that, though, is all of that shouting. That's how he solved the puzzle. And it was hilarious because it's, first of all, I love what you find out about Seth, which is true about David, is set a timer. Because, so you have a clock going.
Yeah.
And when you have a clock going, you're you're turning up the gas on the drama itself and the comedy and the shouting of mackerel, my crab, like all of that stuff, which made me howl with laughter. So when we were crafting it, you get the delight of watching someone put a puzzle together, and the delight of someone who is the audience and Kim watching this young person make magic with letters. And with her, letters have been the enemy, because they've just been saying how if the A's and B's, Father Mendel style, don't line up, then you get what happened to her at birth.
Right.
And there he is changing the Scrabble tiles, and she starts to just fall in love with him a little bit.
Sort of like emotional gene manipulation.
Exactly.
Right.
And very common in musical theater.
Yeah, no, that's what I figured. Almost a cliche. But do you still have the audio of David doing that?
Oh, I do.
Great.
Don't you think it should be like a secret track on the cast album or something?
Yes, I do. Bonus
No.
tracks.
We'll save it for the Smithsonian, and that'll be the end of that.
No, I'd really like to hear it.
All right.
Yeah, time capsule.
So that song was on the Tony Awards. Congratulations on all the Tony Awards that obviously you and the cast deserved and earned and won. Did you expect it? I mean, obviously that's an impossible question to answer. Let me ask this one. What happened? What's something that surprised you about the reaction to the show that people had? I mean, you have hopes for how people are going to respond to it. But was there any response either in the press or in the public or someone coming up to you that kind of took you by surprise? And if the answer is no, that's fine. It's a terrible question.
I would say for me, it was that the show belonged.
Yeah.
I know that sounds so corny, but I'm so BFF braced for failure all the time. And I think that's what David and we share, that Irish Italian. We're just waiting for the meteor to hit every time. And so when something great happens, it's just a shock. And I think the way that it sits at the Booth Theater, the way that it's not a huge theater, it's about 800 seats, right, David? But it's enough that you get to feel like there's a sense of the audience, and that it belongs uptown, which when you move a show is always really it's scary. There are a lot of jobs on the line. It's a family business, and we wanted to have something that would run, not only to have a show that's obviously running, but there are hundreds and hundreds of jobs attached to a show. And I feel like you have the creative responsibility, but there are also a lot of human beings dangling at the end of it. So I was so happy with how it fit into the landscape there of a smaller, but it feels to me a really epic kind of thought based on David's play, which is you can either die until you die or really live until you die. That's the choice you can make.
Yeah, I'll only add more relief than surprise. We knew that we really connected and liked what we were doing, but it's a weird show, and if you have to explain it to someone, you can see their heads cocking like that, say, what? And, the fact that it was made at all and then did so well at the Atlantic is one thing. Then to move it to Broadway, which, is so much about commerce.
It's not always as friendly to weird stuff.
That's all.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it has been embraced has been really nice.
And
think of a better word.
And I could tell that, and David, you know exactly how many seats are in that theater, right?
Yeah, 800.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
How much?
I don't know. 832?
Oh.
Something like that.
Oh, I thought for sure you knew.
Yeah, well.
Me too.
But I mean,
Okay.
It is comparatively a pretty intimate house, and it's a very intimate show. And we're here talking about, this is where we show the book to the camera on television. Right? We're talking about this wonderful published edition by TCG, Theater Communications Group. And this is all the words, and it's a wonderful introduction by Victoria Clark, the star of the show, which is wonderful. And we should praise the cast. They're all amazing. Terrific. But obviously, reading this was a real pleasure. Getting to revisit the show, because I've seen it. Be pretty funny if I hadn't. Be pretty funny if I had showed up at the party after the show, and I've been lying all this time because you very nicely invited me to see it. That's a wonderful show, I can tell you.
Thanks for coming. But
it was really fun to revisit it in this way, because I could really, I process a lot of stuff through reading, and so having all of the lyrics and having all of the words, and then listening along to the cast album, I could hear the music again. It was really wonderful. But one thing that you can't, and I'm sorry about this, Theater Communications Group. One thing the book doesn't capture is the sheer terror when you are in the first or second row and there are actors roller skating on stage.
They're not roller skating.
They're not?
They're skating.
Skating.
They're really skating.
They're really ice skating.
Oh, I misunderstood what was happening there. Was it some kind of surface?
Yeah.
You're absolutely gliding around, right? I didn't hit my head.
Actually, it's not ice, but it is
actually skating.
It is a surface. They are ice skating. And
the point is they're building momentum as they get to the edge of the stage.
Yes,
for sure. They're coming
really
out.
Breathtaking.
Yeah.
But tell me more about, I want to hear more about the surface. Go ahead, David.
Well, only because I don't think there's been a performance when the lights haven't come up at intermission where it wasn't, where I didn't see a husband and it was always a husband who turned to the wife and said, there are tiny wheels in the blades. I could see them. There are no tiny wheels in the skates. They're actually ice skates. But of course, the husbands are positive that there are tiny wheels. So it doesn't surprise me.
I told everyone in my row there were tiny wheels.
Yeah, I know. I heard you. I was there that night.
Yeah.
There are no wheels on the skates. They're actually, the blades are soaked in a glycerin and the surface is such that they can ice skate on it. And it took a lot of prep to make that happen.
I've been on a cruise ship, not to brag, and there is an ice skating surface in certain cruise ships. And it's like a kind of a plastic or something. Very sliding.
I think it's called Polyglide.
Yeah.
But I will say Danny Mefford, who is the brilliant choreographer, a lot of the choreography, that is the choreography, is that he did hundreds of hours of work. And there's skate camp at Chelsea Sky Rink, which I went to. I'm a graduate of.
Wow.
Danny is like a bronze something. Well, I mean, I have to say, and my limbs are still, I didn't get hurt. That's a miracle. There was a ton, and still is a ton of work. They have skate call all the time. Anybody who joins the show has to learn how to skate. It's a thing.
And yet that's the biggest sort of physical wild set piece that I took away from the show. In a time when, it's a cliche that, on Broadway shows, things are always dropping or falling or flying or, a lot of shows are trying to be visually spectacular. And this one is just more intimate and emotionally spectacular in a way. And talking about,
they're trying to be movies and we're not movies.
Right.
We will never be movies. And I don't think that we should try. I understand the impulse to do it. But you can't compete. We shouldn't compete with that. The spectacle comes out of human beings doing things you don't think is possible, not machinery. And it's the combination. I think when scenic designers understand that, and a lot of them do, that you're not comparing it to something that was before. You're realizing it, like when The Lion King, Pride Rock, the first 10 minutes. It's so human. And the reason we wanted skating was not that came from David and me. They were never going to skate. That was a great idea from Jeff Stone. They were always going to be on skates because we felt like when I know in 6th grade, when I reached my ice skating peak along with bowling, you would get off the ice and you would be on those thin little blades. And it was so hilarious to me about seeing all of these, like your person you're crushing on going like this on these thin little blades or their skate guards. It felt like that's how everybody was existing in the play, was on these thin little blades. And so the idea grew from something that I think was really sound and very funny and became something else.
There is obviously choreography, but it's not like a line of tap dancers, which is an incredible human feat to see, that is not that. And I just wonder, it's such a small and emotionally intimate play with musical. And it's, what do you, as Broadway is sort of taking stock of what it can put on, what is your hope that the Kimberly success might mean for musicals going forward, if you have any?
Well, I hope there's room for everyone. I don't want those big giant tap dancing shows to go away. I love them.
No, right.
I want to see those shows. But I hope it means that there is room for smaller, character-driven, more intimate shows like Kimberly. And, Jeanine has sort of cornered the market in that. So Kimberly is not new in that regard.
Sure.
But Fun Home was that, and Violet was that, and Caroline was that. So, more of that, please, as far as I'm concerned. It just shows the people that are in charge that, you can do this kind of show and also find an audience and meet with some success. I hope.
Yeah, me too. I hope it bodes well for Weird.
Bodes well for Weird. Please.
So we're gonna be taking some questions from the virtual audience, as it were. What are your big wants going forward?
Oh, wow. Now it's our turn to sing. Well, Well, Jeanine and I are looking to collaborate again because it's, easy and joyful and that. So we have two things that we're working on that we can't really talk about, but they're both incredibly different from each other, but also from Kimberly. So there's that. But Jeanine has an opera opening soon. Jeanine, you want to talk about your opera?
Yeah, please.
It just was shipped today. So this is such a big day. This opera is called Grounded. It's opening at the Washington National Opera at the Kennedy Center this October, and then is scheduled to be opening the season at the Met a year from now.
Wow, that's incredible. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
the title of the opera?
Grounded.
Grounded. Okay. Sorry,
libretto by George Brandt. Yeah, who also, it's based on his play.
That's amazing.
I will say, I do think in terms of Kimberly, I do hope that people, I have a lot of libretti that I study and a lot of, along with plays, I'm constantly studying. I think working with David is also being a student because he's a great teacher. We teach each other. But reading Kimberly Akimbo, which I did, I could not believe it. When I got this book, I read it cover to cover. And I mean, I co-produced the album with John Clancy, and I have heard every track, every measure. I've read every script, and it was a great pleasure to read, not only because of Vicky's intro, but when you read the intentions behind David's, the stage directions, they're so beautiful and funny. And it is a different kind of experience when you accompany having seen it by reading the script.
I'm so happy to hear that you read the stage directions, because people seldom do, even in the rehearsal room, I have to say. There would always come a moment like 3.5 weeks into rehearsal where an actor would say, oh, you know what I could do? I could do this, this, and that. And the director would say, oh my God, what a great idea. And I'd be like, yeah, it's been in the stage directions that way since, I wrote the damn thing. If you would just read
That's right. That's the D-Law mutter. But what happens is, and I understand it, it's frustrating for us because it's like, I always say, sing the ink, sing the ink. And David's like, look at the script. But they're trying to get off book and they're trying to render us invisible as they should. In doing that, I've always tell students, go back to check in with the music and the script. As you leave it, go back to it. And I think it's really hard, because you want to put it behind.
Is that what
David?
Is that what sing the ink means? It's not, I mean, what do you mean when you
sing
say
the
that?
ink? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Sing the ink means it took me 3 years to write that phrase, please sing what I wrote.
Right.
And then within the limits of that phrase, and when you are asking someone to riff, I put in riff.
Right.
If not, you don't want people. It's like when you change what a composer writes, you're changing the words. You would as sooner, just say Stella Darling in the play. You don't say that because it's just Stella.
Right.
It's the same thing for what we do.
But also, look, obviously we respect actors' processes and directors' processes, and that's incredibly important. I never speak up.
Sure.
I do. At the same time, there is a roadmap that, that we have worked hard to create. And so if it says beat, that might tell you like, oh, and the character is taking a moment, or a change is going on, or, a decision has been made. Like, you can ignore it if you want, but it is there. Or if it says, a stage direction about what someone is doing, that can also inform your character. So
I don't want to brag, but I did read the stage directions as well.
Good. Thanks, John.
And
how were they?
Check.
I genuinely, didn't occur to me to ask this question, but I genuinely had been thinking, there are a couple in there, like, for example, when Kimberly comes out dressed as an old woman to undertake the con, and it says this, I can't find it in here right now, but it says, trust me, it says something along the lines of stage directions like, she comes out dressed as an old woman, maybe a cane. Why can't you decide by now?
I hate those kinds of stage directions when I read them, I have to say. It's just
I've never encountered anything like that before.
I know. Well, because every production is different. So I am writing for future productions, and
Okay.
if you need a little help, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I don't generally do that kind of thing, but if the design or a moment has some wiggle room in it, then I try to provide it to say, How
Mhm.
about this? Yeah,
I think I would just figure by now you could decide, but it's fine if you want to keep it open.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's the
What I know
memoir.
is-
Maybe a cane.
Here's the thing. I wanted a cane, but we don't have one in our production. So
Yeah,
it's
right.
really like I wanted the cane in the
It's
direction.
passive aggressive is what we're
That's
saying.
what it is. Like most everything,
Right.
most of my writing is about
Also, when you mentioned the process, the thing that I really love is when actors make mistakes and you think, oh, that's better than what I did.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. I'm like, oh God, that was much better. All right, let's change that. So it's very fluid until it's not.
Oh, Aaron from Theater Communications Group has the full quote
Oh,
here.
here we go.
Kimberly
Oh,
comes
wow.
out dressed in old lady clothes. She has the makeup of an old lady and maybe a purse and a cane. Then the transformation is stunning.
That's what's most important.
I'll decide if it's stunning, but that's fine. I got you.
Wow. Well, have you decided?
Yeah, it's stunning. The musical is stunning. Everything about it is stunning. But let's talk about what's also stunning? The actors. The actors are stunning in this show.
They are stunning.
And
They're
obviously,
stunning people.
yeah. Well, talk about some of the choices that they made that surprised you, as you were saying, Jeanine.
You know, every one of them, the thing that I really love about this group, and I've done this so many times, and the thing I love about this cast, many things, but they're intergenerational.
Right.
And the beauty of that is you see them watching each other. Vicky leads this company like nobody's business. She's elegant and goofy, total pro, puts up with no bullshit, and elevates the room.
Right.
Absolutely elevates the room. And in doing so, she also I've seen her change because of the way that she's worked with Justin. Justin is all heart. And it turns out that he has a mad skill set coming in, even though he's so young. And to watch that happen, incredible.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. I was just going to say it's those scenes with them together is astonishing because obviously Vicky Victoria Clark is so accomplished and has done so much, and he's just starting, right? I mean, didn't he, Justin? Didn't he like put off college?
Yes, he had just graduated high school to join our show at the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
how do
you look his parents in the eye?
Go ahead. Sorry, John.
How do you look his parents in the eye? You've kidnapped their son.
Yeah.
Send him on. He had probably was going to go into a nice career, and now he's a carny. He's a theater carny. Thanks to you two.
Well,
You're welcome. You're welcome, Justin's parents.
Sorry.
No,
What I was going to say is the actors are also just amazing at walking both lines in terms of the serious stuff and the really funny stuff. Stephen Boyer allows that character to be really horrible and broken, and yet he still loves his daughter. And Ali Mousy, who's so brilliantly funny and is still finding funny moments,
right?
And sing Father Time and Break Your Heart, and they're just the gifted actor, the most gifted actor.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the heartbreaking things about theater that I didn't understand until you took me to the theater, to the Broadway show that first time, David, is that it's not, as you say, Jeanine, it's not a movie. You can't just replay it. You can't just send it around the world. You're going to see it on a stage in New York City with a particular cast in a particular moment on a particular night, and none of it is exactly replicable.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, thank you to Theater Communications Group for putting out this book, which along with the cast album and, will give someone who doesn't have access to Broadway for travel reasons or whatever reasons, an opportunity to engage with this work in their own particular moment in time.
Well said. Well said.
I think that's a great time to turn it over to audience questions.
Yeah, no, it's a terrific time. I'm professional at what I do. And that was a perfect segue. I saw you, Andy, and I thought this would be a great time to take some questions.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. This is a question from Zach Lloyd, who writes, Patty's first song is just incredible. And from what I previously read, it was taken directly from her monologue in the original play. What was the process like when you two crafted that number? It is so musically eclectic, off-kilter, and strange in the best way possible.
Thanks, Zach.
That's my wheelhouse.
He does. Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in.
Oh, you go.
Only because I was terrified. Like, it's so important that we introduce this character in a very specific way that in that monologue in the play, it's like it tells the audience like, oh, this is sort of an off-kilter character. The humor in the play is really important. And yet, how the hell do you turn that into a lyric? And so I fretted about it forever. And then Jeanine was like, I'm just going to set that monologue. What are you doing? Like because Jeanine is such a, in addition to being a brilliant composer, a brilliant dramaturg, and she thinks like a playwright, she just said, the song should sound like the character. Of course. I'm like, oh, go on. And so she just said it. I mean, we made some adjustments musically, but she just took that monologue and said it. And so that later when Patty sings Father Time and we're alone with her and we really feel and see what she's thinking, the song is a completely different song, and it's more organized. And now I've done all the talking, Jeanine, sorry.
No, that's exactly right. Look, it's your words. And the beauty of working in opera and musical theater is that recitative is all over opera. And you have to, I think that you have to be really careful with how much you do it, because your ear can't take too much of it before you go into arias or song form. And I thought, for Patty, there's no way that she can be held to any kind of form. She's like me, we operate from complete chaos. And so she earns the song form when she gets to the moment that she's at her truest.
Great, thank you for that. And here's a question from Andy Germuga. What is your relationship to future productions of your work? I see delightful high school Shrek production photos often. What do you hope for out of future Kimberly productions when that time comes?
Oh, gosh.
Other than a cane.
A cane.
And maybe a purse. Maybe a purse, finally.
Maybe a purse.
So long as it's stunning. Well, Jeanine and I will be involved with, the tour, because it's going to be a tour of this production and, larger productions. But if the question is about high school and regional productions, I'm excited to look up those press photos like everybody else and see what they do. Jeanine?
I'm actually excited to not, the way that I learned how to be a music director was by the authors not being there and making choices and making mistakes and probably things that would have sent people running. To me, that's what you do is you say, here's the work, go take it. How do you see the word? How do you hear it? I especially in schools, it's the great thing was watching Shrek take hold, become a staple in schools. It was so wonderful for us because it didn't quite last that long on Broadway, but we now have a generation of people who did it in schools, and they've grown up on it. So hopefully that will be Kimberly as well with a longer run here.
And the most exciting thing actually is, one of the reasons why I wrote the play to begin with was to create a great part for an older actress, because there's so many of them and there's so few parts. So what's exciting about this is every community in the country and hopefully in the world, has that older woman who's, playing the grandma in 2 scenes and nothing else. The fact that now she can go out and do this instead and stand in that spotlight and have a show be about her. That's what's most exciting.
Yeah, my mother-in-law has eyes on that right now. She's going to mount a production. And
very good. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Looks like we have one more question in the chat. This is from Jacob Rivera Sanchez. You touched on this a bit earlier, but Jacob's wondering, what about Kimberly specifically called out to be musicalized, maybe in a different way than David's other plays like Rabbit Hole, Fuddy Mears, or Good People? Why this one, when you had the idea to adapt one of David's plays, why this one? Why did this one jump out?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I think
who asked that question?
Someone very smart.
Jacob Rivera Sanchez.
Very similar to the first one I asked, but it's cool. Let's give it another try.
I mean, that question is quite clear.
I actually think that Victor actually phrased it much better than I could have, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just a little stinker. I apologize. Please, Jim.
David, always we talk a lot about identity and essence, the way that you see the world and the way that the world sees you, and I think that's a lot of where the juice of singing comes from. And I was really interested in writing, as David just said, for a woman who is older, because there's not a lot of material that allows a woman to not be, you know, to play who they were as well as who they are. And I really love that playground for someone to be able to do that. And you know, that it has all of the ingredients of it's very funny, it's very heartbreaking, and it has a time. It has a TikTok on it, and there's so many, as David said, it's not about plot, but the story is so deep. And I think if you write a musical really well, everybody is telling Kim's story. Every single person is on for that journey.
And also, you know, I think it leads with the heart in a way that, you know, more than some of my other plays. I mean, hopefully there's a heart in all of them. But like Jeanine said, there's not a tremendous amount of plot. I mean, it's why, you know, most movie adaptations don't really work as musicals, because they're so chock full of plot. And then you have to hit all of these things. There's just no room to stop the plot and crack open a character's heart and hear them sing sometimes. And there was room in that show. I mean, Rabbit Hole, I guess, could have that, but it doesn't really feel like a musical yet. Maybe there's an opera in there. But I think the humor in Kimberly helps, the buoyancy of it helps it as well. So anyway.
Yeah, that's a really good word, buoyancy.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jeanine Tesori, David Lindsay-Abaire, and John Hodgman for joining us for this wonderful event. If you are watching this event and you'd like to purchase the book, and why wouldn't you, you can go to the link that is being posted in the chat right now, and you can use promo code Kimberly to get 20% off. Finally, I want to thank everyone who joined us this afternoon. While today we were celebrating TCG Books, TCG does so much more than publishing. TCG exists to lead for a just and thriving theater ecology. And we do mean the whole theater ecology, from playwrights and play readers to theater artists, administrators, and audiences. Please visit tcg.org to learn more about our work. And to support TCG and TCG Books, please visit tcg.org/donate. To keep up with everything TCG Books, please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at BooksTCG. And thank you, and we'll see you at another books event soon.
Thank you to John Hodgman.
No, I mean, stop it. Thank you, Jeanine. I mean, truly, when I texted David and I said, let's go see Caroline or Change Again, because I hadn't stopped thinking about the musical when I saw it. And then to hear that he was sitting in a room with you, probably that room,
It was.
even though I didn't know that you were working on Kimberly Akimbo, I just felt I just peeked in on something very special that's happening. And it is very special. The musical is so wonderful. So thank you for letting me be a part of this very important Zoom call.
Thanks, John. And thanks, Andy, as
Thanks,
well.
John. Yeah, thanks to Andy and TCG
Alright.
for putting up a beautiful book.
Here.